Welcome after about a month of unintended absence to episode 499 of an Unearthly podcast. Streaming live on the 9th of January 2023 and featuring The Church on Ruby Road. Written by Russell T. Davies and starring Ncuti Gatwa as the Doctor and Millie Gibson as Ruby Sunday. I'm Bill Sylvia, the one in black, and I'm wondering if I named the opening wrong or if you used the wrong opening. With me are color commentator Alex Fireheart.
Hey.
And technical director Matt Winchell.
May have forgotten to double check for a new opening. Shoot, I just realized that now myself.
I was like, wait, that opening has the
That was
toy
the
maker
previous
in
one,
it.
yeah. I may have thought it was the right one and then forgot to double check for a new one.
Yeah.
Because again, we've been away for so long.
Yeah, we're rusty. We've had illness. We've had work-related fatigue. I forget if there was a third issue.
Weather.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, weren't you like shoveling snow until the start of when we were supposed to start the podcast one week?
Oh yeah. While also still sick. I'm still recovering. I sound pretty good right now because I just had a cough drop. Speaking of which, I should probably take my pain reliever just to make sure my sinuses don't act up in the middle of the stream.
If you drop the energy a little bit, I'm like, are you really tired or really sick?
I am recovering and technically tired. I've even had a nap today.
So we've been trying to cut down on our banter and such, but especially since it's been a month, anybody have anything particularly exciting on their end?
I think how long has it been now?
Not so much exciting.
Well, we're covering the Christmas special, and it's January 16. So,
I mean, on my end, it's just been my year ended pretty shit, and I won't go into it, but it ended on a pretty down note. Then the year started off on a good note, and now I'm trying to figure out how the fuck I'm going to. I'm just lucky that I don't have much money going out of my account until later today, because Bandai Namco decided to, some error must have happened on their end because they charged me twice for a fairly expensive pre-order.
Ooh.
And now I basically have less than $100 in my account as a result.
So hopefully you'll get it back.
Yeah, it's seemingly they won't do anything until it's finished. My account shows it is no longer processing it, which I guess they mean is it might sort itself out, that they'll realize, oh, well, there's two, but there's only meant to be one, so we'll give that back and just take the amount that we were actually supposed to.
Yeah, there might be an automated system then there they'll check things and it'll go, oh wait, no, that we shouldn't be taking that. Boot.
Yeah, because when the customer service got back to me finally, they were like, well, you need proof that it's actually gone through.
Which some of these things do take a few days.
Yeah. So because it says it's still processing, I basically have to wait until that happens, see what happens, and then get back to them.
Sometimes it's not available in your account, and then all of a sudden it's like, no, this didn't actually go through. It was just reserved, and you were screwed for a long period of time.
Yeah. So hoping that I actually get that back. But it was just kind of scary because I went into the red initially. So thankfully I had enough money still aside that I could move around. That got me out of that.
So
that money's gone, as far as I know. That money's just gone. I'm not getting that back. But
I, on the note of being in the red, I'm not going to go into all the reasons why because it would just take too long. But I basically had to spend 2 weeks bouncing PayPal. How PayPal takes 48 hours to take the money, and then your bank can be like, no, we don't have the money. So yeah, I spent 2 weeks doing that for all of my food and shopping. So I finally made a deposit, two deposits recently, and I'm waiting for another upcoming deposit. That it's all coming at once. Um, so I'm waiting to see what it looks like after the dust settles, because I still need to
Wow,
buy a plane ticket to San Diego for next month.
everybody around here
Mm.
is crunching for money.
Yep.
Last week I hit about $30, but then the next day or like a couple days later, my first check at the new job came through,
Yeah.
$200+, and that's just for 4 days. Actually, no, not even 4 days. That was for 3 days, and one of them was a 4-hour day. That's just my
No
introduction.
bots allowed in chat.
Ban them.
I always forget what to click, and I always do it wrong the first time.
I would help you, but I believe I don't have that kind of control.
Uh,
Need to put me on a list to help moderate.
I thought you were, but maybe not.
I think I'm just on for editor. I'm not sure.
Mm.
I didn't know they were different, but yeah, I'll look that up off stream.
Right. But I'm hit 30 some dollars again this week, but this week should be a $300+ check. 300 though will be immediately leaving for my student loan bill. But on the plus side, one of the reasons I'm so low this week is because I spent $60 on groceries that'll last me past this next week. So fuck it, I'm the good. I'll be able to get that next paycheck next week and be able to sit on it a little bit. The only thing I have to worry about paying for anytime soon is I'll be wanting to grab dinner on my way home tomorrow night because ghost hunting with Aaron and a couple others. Trying to think anything else other than that. Not really. Just recovering from this freaking illness, which I'm finally on the rebound. Like today, I've noticed that like half the gunk is gone, and my pressure in my head is down enough that I can actually hear decently out of both ears. There was a point where I couldn't hear out of one ear, and my voice was completely gone. So
Yeah,
I'm on
that's
the
not
rebound.
great.
Yeah. I'm definitely on the rebound. Now I just got this weird kind of funky feeling in my throat/chest because of all the gunk that's sitting in there. I think it's in the chest because of all the coughing I've had to do to get the gunk out.
Yeah.
So I'm sure a night's rest and hopefully a much more clear throat the next couple of days, I might be on the official rebound and out of this BS. So here's looking forward to that. So that's pretty much my couple of weeks, just hanging on and trying to recover.
Right. So let's get on to tonight's show. We're going to have a very brief channel update. Then we're going to have our births and deaths, followed by the news. We are not going to have Geek Talk because there is just too much to cover. We do have some elements of Doctor Who to cover, and our episode summary, review, final thoughts, and ratings. So the update is brief. It's essentially just our practices for our streams. After reassessing how things are going and our current panel dynamics, of course, we don't have the same people we've had, unfortunately. So we, due to the way conversations have been going, we've decided to limit the active discussion on the news. We will make time to discuss important events, but only if they will not cause the podcast to be excessively long. We are not trying to have 2.5 hour podcasts, which we unfortunately have had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with that, I'll kick it off to Alex to discuss the births and deaths section.
Yep. There's been way too many to cover, so we wish a happy birthday to the many Doctor Who alum who had birthdays since the last podcast, including William Hartnell on the 8th of January, and I'll randomly also throw in Gemma Redgrave, who had her birthday on the 14th. Moving on to Lost Stories. An Unearthly podcast is sad to announce the death of Richard Franklin, who played Mike Yates from Terror of the Autons through to Planet of the Spiders, and again in the Five Doctors. Franklin's death was announced on Christmas Day by family and followed a long illness. Richard Franklin was born in Marylebone, London on the 15th of January 1936 and trained as an actor in the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art. After 6 years in theatre, he broke into TV in 1969 with 36 episodes of the soap opera Crossroads, where he played Joe Townsend. He also played in roles such as Dixon of Doc Green and Blake Seven, as well as Big Finish audio roles. So, condolences to his family and other loved ones in that case.
We've lost another companion.
I think I'm trying to think of how many people are actually left from that era. Not many. It's basically just Katie Manning and
we do have John Levine who played
Benson?
Benton.
Yeah. Moving on.
Yeah, that's it for the Third Doctor, really.
John and Katie, yeah.
Yeah. As well, Toby Hadoke has published his annual Memoriam video of Doctor Who and related media cast and crew whose deaths were announced in 2023. This includes both those who died in 2023 and those who died from 2020 onward, whose deaths were not made public until 2023. I did go through because I was going to see if I could spot either notable enough names and faces that we might not have covered recently. The only one I can really recall off the top of my head is Michael Gambon. Was mentioned in there, which I
think we did cover.
Yeah,
cover.
Most of it was folks who would go fairly unappreciated. I think it was like minor actors,
extras,
crew.
There were a lot of people who weren't well known enough for our typical sources to have announced them.
But it's nice to still have at least a little quick something to say goodbye to them because they are obviously important in the long run.
Right. All right, moving on to our Doctor Who news. First off, official ratings are in for The Church on Ruby Road, which had an official 7-day rating of 7.49 million viewers. This made Doctor Who the third most watched television program on British television for the week, behind the New Year's Eve fireworks and the Christmas episode of Called Midwife. The Church on Ruby Road was watched by 41.4% of the British viewing public and had an AI of 82, which is equal to The Power of the Doctor. Next up, the official Blu-ray for season 15 of Doctor Who, featuring Tom Baker and Leela, has been announced. I'm not actually sure if these Blu-rays are being released outside of the UK. I tried to search them up on Amazon and wasn't finding it, but the trailer for this Blu-ray includes a short in which Leela has a confrontation with the Daleks during the fall of Gallifrey. And the 7-disc box set includes many special features, including a version of Horror of Fang Rock with updated effects. The article says the set is available to pre-order, but according to Amazon UK, it is not.
I think it's one of those things of like maybe it'll be released in the UK first, and then they'll roll it out to other markets after that.
Right.
I found season 14 in just a couple seconds.
Okay, so maybe the keywords I was using was bringing up the wrong things.
I just typed Doctor Who season 14, and I've got the Blu-ray right here already. And,
okay, yeah. So I would put in Doctor Who the collection because that's what these are called.
Oh,
yeah. And nothing was coming up.
Just go with the season. You'll find it much faster.
Know. Okay.
Yep.
So it's branded differently in the US than the UK, basically.
Possibly.
All right. Moving on to future episode news. The first trailer for the next season of Doctor Who is out now, along with a spring 2024 release date. Due to time, we will not be doing a full breakdown of the trailer, although Cultbox has been generous enough to break screenshots down by episodes. Any general thoughts? I know it was a pretty fast trailer. Any general thoughts from our panel?
I didn't hate it, but I felt like I really saw nothing of major interest either.
I mean, the main takeaway I have is that this absolutely cements that this is a Doctor who will not have a set outfit. And then when he's in different time periods, he will dress for the time period, which, thank God, it took them 70 years. But
yeah, I forget if it was the official podcast or the interviews that were basically like, in real life, or it's like in other shows, people change clothes. The Doctor can do that too, or something.
Yeah.
I think the most interesting thing that we saw was Mel and Rose Noble. So they're in at least one episode. Probably the same one, seeing as how they're established as, a family unit together.
Canon characters within the universe still, yeah. And possibly somewhat attached or detached from unit.
Yeah, now Mel and Donna are co-workers. So.
Yeah.
Donna was not in the trailer.
Alrighty.
All right, our next piece. The official complaints website of the BBC put out a statement regarding complaints received about the 60th anniversary. Oh, I skipped one. Okay, I scrolled too fast. All right. The title for a new Doctor Who spin-off series, The War Between the Land and the Sea, has been posted on productionlist.com. The series, which was previously rumored, is described as a spin-off of the fantasy action saga Doctor Who that will feature the Sea Devils, and is listed as based in Cardiff, Wales, and in development pre-production with a shoot date of March 4 of this year.
I'm still not sure how you make a franchise spin-off series off the Sea Devils, but okay, we'll give it a go.
It almost makes it sound like it's more of like like just Sea Devil focused without any like time travel shenanigans, which could be a little boring if done poorly.
Yeah,
but,
it could be very kind of meh, depending on how they go about this.
I'm wondering what the twist is, because there's usually something to make it funny or engaging or something in a Doctor Who franchise.
Yeah. And I'm also curious if it's just like intended as a one-off, or if they're going to treat it as a one-off in case it doesn't go over well. And like if it does well, they'll do more. If not, it's like, it's just a couple episodes, whatever.
Becomes the modern version of K9 and Company. At least give it an 80s theme song. We won't forget it.
All right. So the next piece of news, now I have it correct. The official complaints website of the BBC put out a statement regarding complaints received about the 60th anniversary specials. They said, "We have received complaints from viewers who object to the inclusion of a transgender character in the program, and from others who feel that there are too few transgender people represented. As regular viewers of Doctor Who will be aware, the show has and will always continue to proudly celebrate diversity and reflect the world we live in. We are always mindful of the content within our episodes." So they're basically saying, Rowling and Ken can eat a dick. I support this message.
Yeah, I don't get why the knee-jerk reaction to having a trans person there. I get the knee-jerk reaction to the lame stuff they ended the episode with, but that's neither here nor there.
That was more execution and writing quality than anything else.
That was execution and terrible writing is what that was.
Mm.
I always have another
Although,
issue with this
although
character.
apparently, some of the complaints that were reported by other sources were, "Oh, Rose is anti-men," and it's like maybe characters have different attitudes and opinions.
Mm.
All
Hmm.
right, and then finally we have our big finish news. So I'll pass that to Alex for that.
Yep. So with the new
Ooh.
releases, on the 20th of December, we had the Rani Takes on the World, The Revenge of Wormwood, starring Anjali Mahindra, Daniel Anthony, and Tommy Knight. On the 28th, we had Seventh Doctor Adventures The Last Day 1, starring Sylvester McCoy. On the 29th, we had Short Trips The Hoxteth Time Capsule, written by Paul Spragg. Written by the Paul Spragg Memorial Short Trip Opportunity winner Paul Davis, and starring Colin Baker. Moving
Congratulations,
ahead to
Paul.
January. Yep. Moving ahead to January, we have on the 4th Doctor Who The Chaos Cascade, read by Beth Chalmers, Rebecca Root, and Dan Starkey. And on the 10th, we have Sontarans versus Rootans, The Battle of Giants Causeway, starring Paul McGann, India Fisher, and Conrad Westmus.
Charlie and Carrot, and Perez, as they say within the audio, no matter the spelling. So that's a bit of surprising cast there.
Hmm.
And all right, so that covers up the news, and it would be time for Geek Talk, but we have a lot of elements of Doctor Who to cover today, so we're going to move past that for now.
Alrighty.
And I guess we should start with the summary. So yeah, feel free to give me a countdown.
All right. Stopwatch is up. So starting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, the episode starts with Ruby Sunday on Davina McCall's show, talking about how she was found as a child and then adopted by the woman who had fostered her. Uh, we then follow Ruby over several weeks as she seems to have several incidences of bad luck and accidents that seem to be precipitated by little hands or giggles or similar things. And also the doctor seems to keep being there trying to prevent them. We then arrive at the present day of the episode, Christmas Eve, in which Ruby and her mother find that they are going to be fostering a newborn by the name of Lulubelle, and the mother then Carla is the mother, who then goes back to the store because something caused Ruby to drop the eggs she had just purchased. While she is gone, something comes on the baby monitor saying "Happy Birthday," which it is Ruby's birthday as well as Lulubelle's, causing Ruby to dart into the room where the baby is and finds an empty crib. She climbs on the roof and finds gremlin-y, goblin-y creatures carrying the baby away on a ladder. So she jumps on the ladder. The doctor then appears, jumping on rooftops, trying to follow them until he also jumps on the ladder, revealing that he has intelligent gloves that basically control the distribution of force of the body so that it's easier to hang off of things. They then climb up the ladder, where they are promptly taken prisoners by the creatures that the doctor reveals as goblins. Uh, they manage to free themselves, and the doctor learns how to manipulate the ropes that they use to control their ship. They then crawl in what seems to be a maintenance tunnel, although the doctor describes it as an air vent, or air duct, whatever he says. And they arrive in a room where a bunch of goblins are singing about eating the baby, and then leading to them seeming to feed it to, or which leading the baby on a fucking, I'm losing my words, my
Conveyor belt?
vocabulary, a conveyor belt. This is why I write notes, not because I forget the plot, because I forget my vocabulary. A conveyor belt leading to a giant goblin king. The doctor picks up the baby and continues the song as a way of basically keeping the goblins from jumping them. And then uses both the fact that he messed with the knots controlling the ship and his intelligent gloves to allow them to use a rope to jump down to Ruby's home. Once they get there, Carla then returns, and they keep pointing out multiple coincidences that are happening, which also causes, which apparently causes the goblins to cause a giant crack throughout their building. Within a few moments, it seems that Ruby has never existed, and the doctor realizes that they basically followed the path of coincidences back to Ruby's birth to steal her as a baby. The doctor takes the TARDIS to follow them, and he uses his intelligent gloves, which have 3% battery left, to basically function as the Hulk and pull the goblin ship down on top of the church, impaling the Goblin King, which causes the goblin ship to vanish like a Final Fantasy boss that you've defeated. The Doctor then goes back to the present, where everything seems to be right. He dips out for a second to save Davina McCall, who he hadn't realized was having bad luck, and was about to be killed Final Destination style by a tree. Shout out to the opening we didn't use. He then comes back, and Ruby enters the TARDIS, realizing that he's a time traveler. The end.
All right. So when I looked up before I hit the stop, that was 4 minutes and I believe 57 seconds.
Just within 5.
Just within the 5.
I stumbled on my words too much. But I made it under 5. All right. So we have elements of Doctor Who. We have 3 different things, and it probably makes sense to go in our usual order and discuss them. So first off, Alex, what was your opinion on the new Doctor, the 15th Doctor, as played by Ncuti Gatwa?
Well, I'm definitely enjoying him so far. It's funny because I'm so used to the Doctor being either very commanding or just very, uppity. So it was kind of an interesting contrast to not have a Doctor Who, and I guess it makes sense because in the context of what we've had happen, this is effectively a Doctor without the baggage of the previous, or at least without a lot of the excess baggage of the previous. So he's allowed to be a bit more carefree.
Mm-hmm.
So is interesting thus far. He does have good energy, and he can still have his enough moments where it's okay, this is definitely the Doctor. So that's appreciated. But yeah, I think that's about all I've got. There's not much to really say. It's just a fairly solid performance thus far.
All right, Matt.
I pretty much have to agree with that assessment. He has definitely some very charismatic moments during the episode. He seems like he's generally a lot of fun, not unlike David Tennant before him. Not over hyper like Matt Smith, not overly angry like a couple of other previous Doctors recently, and not completely bonkers like a couple of them either. So it's kind of a nice little medium that they
So
have
is
running.
Jodie Whittaker angry or bonkers?
Huh?
So does Jodie Whittaker fall under angry or bonkers in that assessment?
Bonkers. She can't seem to understand how to even have a serious talk for 5 seconds. Just saying. That was an issue I had during her season, and I don't blame the actress. I blame the bad writing. Yeah, they seem to at least know how to write this Doctor properly so far. I'll give them that, definitely, for sure.
Okay.
Is that they gave him some very, he's not like low energy or anything, but he also has some very interesting moments, especially the whole figuring out goblin rope technology, which is a thing in and of itself.
Yeah, and actually, I like the David Tennant comparison because that was something I was I was also thinking because he's a very high energy doctor, right? He's much more upbeat than Peter Capaldi. He's much more high energy than Jodie Whittaker. And he also leans into the charismatic aspect, which again is neither Jodie nor Capaldi. And Matt Smith usually didn't really go with the charismatic doctor either. This is very much an RTD style doctor now that I think about it.
Yeah, it's very much like Tennant or Eccleston.
Which, it could be a bad thing if that's the only kind of doctor that RTD knows how to write. But for the moment, I'll say it's a good thing because it's been so long since we've had this style of doctor. And of course, parts of the Doctor's personality should repeat, right? It's the same person. So it is nice to see this. I don't really have any complaints about him at this point. He's, again, nothing you wouldn't really expect from an RTD style Doctor. Other than this isn't a complaint, so I kind of led into it wrong, but is very clearly a theatrical Doctor. He jumped straight into the musical scene in a way that I'm not sure any recent doctor. I mean, are there any doctors that we think would have just started singing like that?
I know the Sixth Doctor did it in the audio adventures, but that's about all I can really think of.
I could
because he did his own off version of Pirates of Penzance, I believe, in one episode.
I know. Peter Capaldi played guitar, but he didn't really sing, or if he did, it would have been a rock ballad.
And same with Sylvester. He was a bit of a guitar player, but that was about it.
I could see some doctors going for it, but whether they'd be that good at singing,
right?
Another question,
whether they'd lean into being very dorky as opposed to this, where it was like straight up a musical moment.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of doctors are, of course, Shakespeare theater. This this performance was a bit of Broadway.
Yeah, this is very much Broadway-esque.
All right. This we probably will have less to say, but I know we want to cover it. The Sonic. Alex is first.
Yeah, I'll keep mine short because I went off on it on one of our previous.
But you had a caveat, and they did say the word.
Yeah, that's the thing that has irked me is I was so long as they only call it the Sonic, I'll be fine. And they called it the Sonic Screwdriver several times, so I'm like, no, I don't buy it. And the funny thing is a lot of the time previous Doctors in the New Who era would just refer to it as the Sonic, interchangeably. So it wouldn't have even been that weird to drop the word screwdriver from the name. But yeah, maybe the design will grow on me with time, but it just looks like a computer mouse with some weird shit thrown on.
Looks like a modern tricorder.
And yet we're up to Matt.
I don't have any of the problems with what they did with it, but I will say it does look very strange for a sonic screwdriver. The design of it still gives me a lot of questions, but at least they weren't making bullet bouncing walls out of it. Specials.
That's true. They didn't use it too much, although that's because he had another special device to arguably abuse, but we'll see how we feel about that throughout the review. Is that the end of yours, Matt?
That's my basic thoughts on it so far. Yeah, they
Okay,
didn't use
and
it too much this episode.
Yeah, the fact that the first thing he does is, oh, it's my sonic screwdriver, and then we get, that's a screwdriver, and it's like, yes, you're echoing what everyone in the audience says. So at this point, I have to assume that Russell did that to troll the entire audience with a screwdriver. That
It's not against Russell's character to troll.
Looks nothing like a screwdriver, and nothing it does in the episode is related to screwdriving. Instead, it's a diamond detector. I'm not sure why it goes ding when there are diamonds, but
yeah.
All right. This will probably have a bit more to say about this one. Ruby Sunday, starting with Alex.
It's funny because I did not expect that accent. Maybe because it's just I hadn't seen interviews with her talking in like a considerable amount of time. Because I feel like I had seen interview clips with her, but I just clearly hadn't seen them in ages, so I did not expect that voice to come out.
Okay.
That woman. So I was almost kind of like, oh, thank God she's not from London.
Yeah.
I've got a northern companion for a change rather than a northern doctor. Although I guess,
to be fair, I think all of the
northern
13th companions were
Right.
technically northern.
Yeah. So I guess we've got another one. So we've got like 5 total now, I guess, that have been from the north.
So if she's northern, then she would call it a scone instead of a scone.
I do find it nice that as much as like surface level, there was the worry of like, oh God, this is just going to be Rose again. There was no, actually watching this, there was no feeling of that whatsoever. So that was very like, oh, thank God. Like, I mean, yeah, there's shit that we'll probably get to later that feels kind of Rose-ish in that is, but granted, that's more just RTD shit. But
Okay.
there's, I mean, for one thing, it's nice that like Rose was supposed to be about the same age, but played by an actress in like her mid-20s. They actually got an actress who is like 19 or 20 when she was cast. So it's like, hey, what,
Yeah, she's filmed 2
impressive.
seasons, and she's currently 19 years old.
So she would have been 18 when she filmed this season, yeah.
Possibly 17. I forget when they started filming.
Possibly. For at least a little bit of it.
Yeah. But yeah, it's generally nice to actually do that where they go, well, we're going to have a younger companion, and they actually hire someone of that age range.
They're going to be barely into college, but somehow they're 30 years old.
Yeah. I mean, generally, I'm liking her so far. Very good introduction for her. There's like one thing that I would want to get into, but I might leave that until later.
Okay.
Just to not like make this segment go on too long.
All right, it sounds like our cue to segue to Matt.
All right. So far, I don't have any issues with the character. I do worry that Russell might be going but they're special route, which has happened to a couple of companions which have gone wrong.
I was expecting Alex to say that.
Which I assume is what Alex was being about the bush about.
Yeah.
But I also won't linger on it too long. I'm just worried that it might be a thing that happens yet, but it hasn't happened yet, so we'll have to wait and see. Otherwise, she seems like a simple enough, decently written companion so far, so I have nothing to really hate on here. Just have to wait and see where things go from here. So
All
on to
right,
Bill.
so yeah, I think she's likable enough. At the time, I was sitting there, it was like something about the way she talks seems familiar. And then I logged onto Twitter, and everyone was saying, "Oh, it's Clara 2.0," and I was like, "Okay, I see that now. Her sense of humor, like her way of going about things, the fact that she picks up so quickly on things, is all very Clara." However, I think Clara had a little bit of the accusations of being too good, picking up on things too, of being borderline Mary Sue-esque, to not to go down the rabbit hole of that term. Um, Whereas I think Ruby is a little more down to earth, almost a mixture of Rose and Clara in that sort of way.
Mm.
But I mean, her backstory, I think, is completely original. And again, hopefully since we're learning more about what led to her being left there, hopefully she's not like a secret Time Lord or something.
Please, God.
But, going off of only what's in this episode, her backstory is pretty unique. She does have things that are similar to some past companions. And hopefully she'll distinguish herself more and more from them as time goes on.
Mm-hmm.
Especially since her backstory seems like it's going to be important. And that's it for me. So now we move on to what we like about the episode, and we've got there before the hour mark, so things are going well.
Hey. Not bad.
So what Alex likes about the episode?
Oh, now I'm trying to remember what I had, because I was going to avoid my usual go-to as a generalization. Crap. Damn, what was I going to go with? Oh, well, screw it. Because I'm blanking on what I was originally
You
going
might
to
as
go
well just
with,
go for whatever, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just go with what my usual fallback onto is, which is the acting. Um, like, I have issues with certain things this story does, but as is usually the case in, I feel like more often than not in new rather than classic, this is because like classic has had issues with acting before, and I feel like New Who
Mm-hmm.
doesn't as much. Whereas even if you
Depending.
don't really particularly like the story,
Yeah.
the acting is usually, even if it's not like, amazing, it's at least like solid enough that you can't really fault the actors. It's just a script.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was pretty solid performances from just about everyone on screen.
I just found an unopened cheese stick in my laptop bag. Wonder if it's still any good.
Eyebrow
Anyway,
raise. We're
that's
about
it.
to hear Bill take a spit
Yeah.
take. Well, in the meantime, I guess my general feelings on the
I was
episode.
looking for a tissue so I wouldn't have to stand up. Yes, go ahead.
So general feeling about it. General thing I liked about it overall is that this is very competently put together. I will say. Um, the general direction of it seemed to be pretty solid. Obviously, the actors were corralled pretty well. The episode didn't really lag anywhere and moved quite decent pace, and the visual effects didn't really have much of an issue either. And that's for an episode with a ton of little monsters in it, technically at certain points. So honestly, I think in general, the production of it was very well done.
Mm-hmm. Which I
It,
think means it's on to me.
yep.
All right, so I'm going to say that the episode was fun. Specifically, it's the perfect tone for a Christmas special like this. Some Christmas specials are just like kind of boring. And of course, a lot of the Doctor Who episodes are more dramatic and depressing or scary. But as a Christmas special, you're looking for, especially one that is introducing a new Doctor and companion. This had the perfect tone. It was a fun episode. It drew me in. Um, it was entertaining, and kept me in a good mood pretty much the whole time. Exactly what I would want from this side type of special, right? It's not like in the middle. It's not like a mid-season episode or a season finale where you want it to be depressing or scary or whatever. It was just a
Or some
fun
over top ending.
episode, and that's the right time for it.
Mm-hmm. Also, if I may, I think this episode hit on minor notes of Gremlins,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
with the goblins being little
Oh,
tricksters causing chaos and stuff throughout the
yeah.
episode.
Mm.
Are you tying that into what I said, or is that just a separate?
Just a general separate thought that occurred to me as I was saying my stuff too,
Okay.
and I was like,
Mm.
I could have mentioned that, but I'll hold off on that. Something to add later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Alex and I had a very brief discussion of, should they have been called gremlins instead of goblins? And it's like they're kind
Mogwai.
of they're kind of halfway between the two. They kind of combine them into one concept, which is not unusual for movie-esque things like Doctor Who.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
I will say I remembered what I was originally going to go with, and that was one that I'm kind of surprised in hindsight that it was a positive for me. Probably because I've watched it like 4 bloody times now. But the intelligent gloves, and I think it's mainly because like if they looked like super high tech, like something out of a cyberpunk thing, then I probably would have been like, no. Like, no, that's too much. But because they basically just look like woolen gloves that have had like some tape put on them and then CG touch-ups to make them light up, or even just
Mhm.
there are lights under them.
Just like some LEDs or something, yeah.
That's something they could
Yeah.
sell,
Like,
actually.
Mm-hmm.
well, yeah, effectively, it looks like. I mean, I think even a point like the official podcast made is like they're so simple that kids could just basically make something very, like put like reflective tape on the back of woolen gloves, and there you go. You can like kids can have their own little thing, and it's
Mhm.
very easy to make. Um, like between that, it's something that is like small enough. It doesn't get. I don't like. I think they would have bugged me more if there wasn't clear limitations.
Oh yeah,
Like
those things have
by
some
the
very
end,
short battery life.
yeah. Like if they had been just like, nah, there's like full on MacGuffin, they can just do whatever. That would have pissed me off. But because there are limitations to them and that they need recharging and stuff, that was like, okay, I can deal with that.
I had one issue with the intelligent gloves, and I've been waffling as to whether it's my least favorite scene or not. So I'll discuss that later on.
Mm. But I guess
Speaking
from
of
that we can
which,
move.
what do we
Yeah.
dislike about the episode?
What to pick? There's a few. Um, you know what? I'm just gonna go with the fact that, and depending on who you are, will depend on how this comment lands before I elaborate. But this felt very Force Awakens to me, and that is not insofar as like the criticism that movie gets of basically just being certain elements of A New Hope retreaded. I don't mean that. I mean the fact that there's like, hey, let's set up. I mean, thankfully, this is a matter of RTD setting up stuff that we know he will come back to. But it's just like, it's a mystery box shit. I'm like, I'm over it. I'm over it. We've had it from RTD. We've had it from fucking Moffat.
Like, I'm done with
We've kind of
foreshadowing.
had it with,
No
yeah,
more
we've had
literary
it.
devices in my Doctor Who.
Like, we've had, you know, we kind of had it with Chibnall, but not as much because really the only mystery box he had was the Timeless Child. But like, New Who has been like obsessed with mystery box shit, and I'm just like, just let these people be people, and just you don't have to do like if it's gonna be a mystery thing that's drawn out, have it just be a villain plot. Like I'm bored of like seemingly there's like the whole thing with Ruby with her parents, and then we've got Mrs. Flood as like a mystery box thing of well, how does she know what a TARDIS is?
Honestly, there's been so much coverage of that, and I honestly think it was just
Oh, he's
RTD
flat out
having a bit
said
of
that that's
fun.
coming back.
Oh, he has. Okay.
Yeah, he has flat out
I honestly
stated
was just
in
like, this is
clips.
him saying, no, this is just kind of a funny little episode. Okay, but if he said that that's gonna matter, then I take it
Yeah.
back.
Yeah, he has sort
He
of
does say that there's something important about her, but yeah, other than that, it won't give anything
yeah.
away.
Yeah. So that's its own little dangling thread, and you know, it's just this. There's all that stuff, and I'm just kind of like, I'm over it. Like, at least the way Doctor Who handles it, and this many at once is like, at least with Bad Wolf, that was one. You know, at least with like some of the other ones we got, like Dr. Donner and stuff like that, it was one. Harold Saxon was one. And even that was like a background detail. So that wasn't even like a lingering, ooh, what's this? That was just like a background detail.
Well,
that ended up paying
it
off.
was two because Torchwood was sprinkled throughout the season as well.
Right. But yeah, it's just like, oh, can like
Oh no,
I
that was
feel like
technically the previous season. Never mind.
like I feel like it wouldn't bother me as much if it wasn't like several at once. But even then, it's still very like, oh god, it's RTD doing RTD shit again. like this was an element of his that I was hoping would go away, and the fact that it hasn't is just like, oh great. Like, I think I feel kind of spoiled by the fact that we had, like, for all the faults Chibnall's era had, his companions were just people. There was nothing particularly special about them. They were just ordinary, working class people from
And then he
England.
forget to develop some of them.
Whatever. I mean, yeah, again, he wasn't perfect, but it was at least they were regular people and not like
You're
the Impossible Girl. Yeah, it wasn't the Bad Wolf, the Impossible Girl, Dr. Donna, Girl Who Waited, all this shit. And I'm just like, can we knock it off, please? I think like that's part of why I get the like the Force Awakens feeling so much, because it feels very, ooh, who are Rey's parents? I don't give a fuck.
I don't think
Who are Ruby's parents?
honestly, I
I
don't think
don't
the
give a
Force
fuck.
Awakens ever really set that up. That was all the fans being like, people must have important parents, right?
That seemed to be something that was pretty much set up by the movie.
Yeah,
itself.
that was intentionally set up.
That was some
I think
intentional
he's
setup,
even
but that
said
went
it,
fuck all anywhere
yeah.
until the last movie, in which case they just slammed it in your face because they had to give something, because otherwise you just wasted our time for 2 movies previous. Anyway, on to me.
Yep.
All right, I have to say I'm in a very similar spot where it's like there's some good stuff here, but there's also a lot of setup for future things to happen. But at the very least, I will say this: as annoying as it is for our first episode to have so much setup and so many dangling plot threads setting up for the rest of the season, plus possibly, I will say on the other end of the stick, unlike certain other people like Chibnall, at least our current leader of the show actually knows how to finish a plot thread. It may be hand wavy at times, but at least he finishes them.
I think Chibnall was better at that than Moffat.
Both of them were terrible. RTD's the only one that's ever actually finished plot threads properly.
I'll say this much: for as much as I was annoyed by the very J.J. Abrams mystery box bullshit in this, I will say that it's at least better than the Halloween Apocalypse, which felt very overstuffed with set up for later shit. That was that was very clunky. Whereas this was like it was
Halloween
annoying,
Apocalypse.
but it was at least set up. The first episode of Flux
Oh, fuck yeah.
that we all
God, that was
hated because
awful.
it was like 90% set up for future shit.
Yeah, that was the episode we watched, and we were just like, we can't rate this because it's not a story. It's literally all prologue.
Yeah.
This is all prologue. Oh, God, this is going to be awful. We were wrong. Anywho, Bill.
Yeah. Okay, so on to me. So moving away from that, my least favorite thing is the Goblin King. And this is not a Labyrinth reference. I'm not comparing him to David Bowie. This is its own story.
That's what
But I
you
had several issues with the Goblin King. One is that they had this whole song about how, like, what they say, the baby should feed them for 3 or 4 days at least. And then they bring
Yeah.
out the Goblin King, and they're just like, by the way, this guy can eat a whole village, and we're just giving the baby to him. That's one issue. The second issue is that, the goblins they varied in how verbal they were. Actually, I mean, they were pretty, I mean, if you look at like the Vor Goblin, which I don't know if that's coming up later or not. That was pretty much functional English sentence, right?
Mm.
A Goblin King that could actually talk and banter would have been so much more interesting than just a monster that grunts at the end of a conveyor belt.
True.
Yeah.
It was the least interesting thing they could have done with the Goblin King.
The other goblins were all much more interesting than him.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
the Goblin King should not be the least interesting goblin if you're giving all the setup for him. Like half the song was about him. They could have just not had I mean, if they didn't have a Goblin King, then there might have been the question of, what do they poke at the end to end the whole thing? But yeah, they took the least interesting route for this quote unquote character.
Literally would have been more interesting to have a fake David Bowie at the end of that conveyor belt.
Yeah, any other thing they could have done with him would have been more interesting. So that's my least favorite thing about the episode.
I almost kind of wonder if it was just a matter of Russell thinking like, oh, that's a bit Tolkien. If I have him talk. But you could almost argue just having goblins in general like this and them singing is very Tolkien. So...
Yes, it already is. So it's like you're not avoiding it just by not having the king talk.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, Alex's favorite scene.
I feel like at first I was very on the fence about the song. But I think the main thing that wins me over, especially on rewatches, is primarily Ruby's bit.
Okay.
Where it's the most like, oh god, I've got to make up a song on the spot because the doctor has just pulled me into this now. And I think it's even specifically a line like, it's so good to deedly deet you is so very like, I am ad-libbing, I'm not good at ad-libbing, oh god help.
Yeah.
It just like is what kind of makes it work because it's more believable that you're like, yeah, we're just making a song up right now to fit the scheme they were singing earlier.
Mm-hmm. All right, Matt.
Honestly, one of my favorite moments, the snowman head thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Doctor barely saves the day by getting the Sonic to go off in time to get the car out of the way. Ends up having the head crash down on him, and has a officer questioning him about it. And he's just like, "Sir, I just had a giant snowman's head crash on me. Oh, by the way, she'll say yes," and then wanders off like a doctor would.
Yep.
I'm just like, oh, there's a little Paul McGann in him too.
Yeah, that was a good scene. There's a moment in there that's the other thing I'm considering for least favorite scene. But the majority of that, I agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and I think I'm going to say, especially since everything else I was would have thought of was probably taken, the beginning of the Goblin song. So everything before they start talking about the Goblin King, because it's on one hand like it's very clearly written in the way that you would like it's things you would expect these goblins to say, although maybe
Mm.
not in such an articulate voice. Um, the way it's delivered, on the other hand, just ties into what I was talking about this just being a fun episode. Like
Mm.
it's just you can't you hear that starting up and it's just like the energy is contagious. Like after having watched this again once a week since Christmas, um, it's the one time where I just I immediately perk up and get into it because it's just a well put together musical number, right? It's very much like you'd expect from a show that typically does musicals, which Doctor Who is not. It almost
Mm.
makes me wonder if something that RTD has done in the past 15 years was a musical focused show that I'm not aware of, because it was put together very well for that. And it, of
Mm.
course, unlike some shows, this was actually a musical that made sense in universe, right? You have these mystical creatures, and they're celebrating a big event with a song, and there's a stage and everything. It's not just
Mm.
everybody starts singing because there's
Because
everybody
musical.
singing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's a legit natural musical moment, and the characters just happen to fall into it and try to continue the moment.
Right.
Mm. Yeah. From what I can tell, Russell has said in interviews and that this is something that he's wanted to do with Doctor Who for ages. He just never
Okay.
got around to it in his first run. So I guess he figured,
Which
well, I've got
makes
a
sense
second
because
chance,
he's a
I'll do
huge
it.
Buffy fan.
Mm.
Yeah.
And of course, Buffy is the one that kind of
Started it.
started. I'm sure they weren't the first one to have a musical episode, but they
Mm.
kind of started the trend of the musical episode being a common thing in shows.
Mm.
All right, least favorite scenes.
Ah. Um. Ah, yes. I get that Doctor Who usually bits in the face of like realism a lot, but so the Doctor kills the Goblin King, and then the thing disappears. Baby Ruby falls out of the sky, and he catches her, and I'm like, that baby's dead. Just like,
Although, to be fair, he caught them with intelligent gloves.
Yes.
yeah. Still, I'm just like, falling from that height and a sudden stop. That
If it was
baby is
yeah, if it
dead.
was anything other than intelligent gloves, I would have been like, we have a Gwen Stacy situation.
It's very obvious. It's a very
um,
obvious Chekhov's gun setup.
I mean, even well, that's just it. The intelligent gloves would have still been set to bloody heavy, wouldn't they?
Depends on how fast you can
Unless you
change that
like,
setting. I don't know.
Yeah, it's
like
hand
unless you change them off screen.
it's vague enough that I can accept it in a way that I wouldn't have accepted it in other circumstances.
Mm.
I'm also not entirely sure that was intended in the writing. I'm wondering, that I think they were just like, oh yeah, the doctor catches the baby, and he just so happened to be wearing intelligent gloves.
Yeah.
But it's the way they work is vague enough that I'm like, okay, I can accept that all of the kinetic energy and mavity, etc., is absorbed by the intelligent gloves and is not affecting the baby.
Mm. I might have accepted that slightly if he like kept the kept her kind of moving close to the ground as he caught her. But I think it's just catch, and that's it. Just a flat catch, and I'm like, eh. I don't like. It's got to go somewhere. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, there are ways that they could have got around it. Like, if it had been a matter of even that, like, he was still on the roof of the church and caught her, I would have probably believed that a bit more because it would have been slightly less of a fall. Um, but it just feels like one of those things of they wrote themselves into a corner. Oh shit, the baby was in the ship, so now we've got to figure out how to do that. I could also just see Russell being like, "Ah, it's a Christmas special. Don't think about it so much." But like, we just had talking, singing goblins from that apparently are time riders, as he was saying. So, like, don't think about it too hard. But it's like, well, no, that's how my brain's wired, Russell. Like, I can't not overthink it. But anyway.
All
That's
right,
about all I've got for that.
Matt.
We could have gotten rid of one of the dangling threads, or at least tugged on it a little bit harder with this episode very easily. As the Doctor literally watches Ruby's mother walk away, and it's just like I'm having a moment where Conan the Barbarian the movie is talking to me, where Sebetai's voice just comes on me and goes, "If I run away today, I only come back with less company." You know you're going to be suckered into coming back here for this again, don't you, Doctor? Come on, do something. No, we're just walking away. Fine. Ugh. You're still going to be coming back for this eventually. You know you will.
Mm.
One way or another.
So, knowing the fact that RTD plans to go back to this, that's true. If I were in the Doctor's shoes, I would kind of just be like, you know, does that run the risk of changing history versus does she, is that something that would actually make her happy to know? And of course, he wasn't there for all the, like, I mean, he wasn't, yeah, I don't think he was there for the phone call or everything. So he doesn't really, I don't think he knows that she was looking for that information. Maybe he does.
I'm pretty sure he does. Because he literally went to save the woman, too. Remember?
True. Although I think that was specifically after. Well, oh yeah, so she mentioned Davina McCall on the ship. I don't know if he knows. I mean, he knows who she is, so maybe he does know about her show. He's British. I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
So fair enough.
No, he knows something's going on there, and the fact that this woman literally left the baby Rose behind, he knows that she's obviously got questions.
Did you say Baby Rose?
Or baby Ruby. Ruby, Rose, Red, ours, I don't know.
Yeah,
All right.
I mean,
Still,
it
he knows
is
he's
kind
coming
of
back.
funny. It is kind of funny because it does seem like I was kind of mixed on that scene because it's like I kind of like that the Doctor is like, no, in this instance, Ruby is more important than whoever the hell this is. But it also seems like a very Doctor thing to do to like go after them and be like, how fucking dare you abandon this baby? Like, not even
I'm not
necessarily
even
how
sure.
dare you, but like, what's
Yeah,
the
not so
story
much a
here?
how dare you, but much more of a why.
Yeah, like even if it is the mother, like, and it's like, don't say anything. I could see the Doctor being like, okay, but it almost does seem kind of weird that the Doctor
Damn it!
would not.
I just remembered we had that whole like subplot with Bill and the Doctor finding who her mother was, and I don't think that really went anywhere that mattered. Or maybe it was just finding photos of her mother or something. But it's like now this is reminding me of that as we talk about it.
Again, I at least trust Russell to make it count for something. As long as he hasn't lost that ability. I don't know. It's been a while since I've watched a show of you, Russells. Please don't let me down. Knock on wood.
All right, so we're at the end, to the last person, and I guess I'll say both the scenes I was thinking of because I'm last.
Uh-oh.
So the main one is the scene where intelligent gloves turn the Doctor into the Incredible Hulk, and he pulls the ship down from the sky. Because partially, yeah, that whole 3% thing that Alex liked so much, they basically
Yeah.
spit on it in that scene, because you can't tell me
Mm,
that
That doesn't
scene
burn
didn't
it
use
through.
up at
Yeah.
least as much energy as the entire rest of the episode. So
right. Like
that should have run out of power.
right. Like they do kind of have them like sparking and all that, but it is one of those things where it feels like they forgot to like
Should have been
even
more
just
like
an offhanded
30%.
They were like,
right.
we can't really resolve this without spending another 30 minutes. Let's have the plot device of the episode handle it instead.
Mm. I mean, it's
Again, the Chekhov's gun.
yeah. And like yeah, like if they'd said there was slightly more and then like there was a quick offhand comment after the fact of like, well, that's these rendered useless
Hmm.
because he
Like,
overexerted
what should
them.
have happened is it should have started to work and then they ran out of power, in which would have been consistent with the way they've been portrayed in the episode, right? 3% after the entire plot episode. And then he
Mm.
had to do something clever to fix it, right? Because that's
Yeah,
the Doctor's whole thing, is doing something clever. And being
yeah.
Hulk smash is not something clever.
Mm.
But they also had what, 5 minutes, 10 minutes left in the episode.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that
Um,
is kind of an issue with New Who in general, is that they kind of write themselves into a oh fuck,
mhm,
we've only got this much time left, we've got to resolve this.
right. The other very short thing that I had was debating as least favorite scene is when the Doctor was mad because he thought a woman had her baby at midnight. And it's like, just because it's midnight doesn't mean you can't leave the baby at home unless there's another parent there. You can't just, like, I didn't expect the Doctor to be classist and assume that every baby has a nanny, but it seems like that's what he was thinking, because he's like, and it's like it didn't turn out to be a baby, but the thought process that led him to think it, to complain about it, is just like, yeah, even at midnight, sometimes mothers need to do shit.
Mm.
It happens.
I
So
thought
I
that,
he
mean,
was
given
more
the
more off put by her walking a baby in midnight in the cold.
yeah, like
maybe, but again,
But they didn't really phrase it that way
sometimes
either.
mothers need to do.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he didn't say anything about the cold, so I didn't think about it.
Mm.
Maybe that was part of it. I don't. I mean, I don't know how cold it gets at Christmas time in England, but
I know it
Mm.
usually snows during winter and over there, so
Mm.
from what I've seen of English people talking, it does. They claim it does not usually snow.
I mean, I think it depends on where you are.
Yeah, it
Like,
may
I mean, it
depend
still
on what
get
part of the
cold
country, and
even
I
if
couldn't
mm,
I couldn't remember because they were talking about. They said nobody would move to London, and I was like, "Wait, does that mean she's in London or not in London?" And maybe I could have paid more attention to that.
don't recall.
um. But yeah, that was more of a um.
Okay, yeah, they do live in London, so yeah, they
Hmm.
are uh, relatively southern. They're not in the north, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I will say it did feel like a very may I don't even know if necessarily modern, but definitely almost I could see some classic doctors in that moment being very heated of like because of what just happened and also being annoyed at what happened to just snap at whoever happened to be there.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
Like I could definitely see like
Pertwee definitely would have.
Pertwee, probably even Tom Baker and Colin Baker, I could see all being like, "What the fuck are you doing?" uh,
All right, so now we are on to final thoughts about the episode, starting with Alex.
um, it's a bit of an odd start to the shooty era, I guess, as a way of saying it, because I can't really say it's the start of like RTD's second run because
I usually do
that had
RTD too.
previously started. Yeah. Um. Uh. But it's weird. Like I've noticed, like I was very not knowing what to think of it at first, to the point that, I mean, to kind of bring up Force Awakens again. The irony of that movie being considered very ripping off A New Hope is that when I saw that the first time, I was like, I like this, but do I like it as the franchise that it's in? And that's what I had the first time watching this, was like, well, I don't hate it, but do I like this as a Doctor Who project? And it took a few watches to really get to the point of saying yes, but also there's just decisions, and it's gonna affect people differently. So this is a thing of just like personal choice. There are certain things done in this that I'm like, no. And I mean, really, the whole like, there are some things that some people will give it more leeway than I will, and I'll give it some because it's a Christmas special, and those are usually a bit silly anyway. Um, but I mean, there's more positive than negative. I will say that. But it's just, it doesn't really get me like super excited for what's coming so much as just, oh, he hasn't really changed much since. So
Which, to
okay.
be fair, is what a lot
Um
of people wanted, was a return
yeah.
to 2008. So
Mm, yeah. Whereas I was just hoping that he'd have a different perspective from having gone off, done other stuff, and coming back with more creative freedom this time than he had last time. Um, oh, I will say we never touched on it because there was never really an excuse to bring it up. But hey, this had trans representation that didn't involve dead naming the trans person.
yeah,
Hooray! She's just kind of there as a one of Ruby's friend group.
Just
It's
a Ruby
like,
friend, and they're just there and they're out.
although yeah, the way
Yeah.
I saw it talked about confused me at first because she's the lead singer of Ruby's band, but someone just
hmm.
said like it's something. I think one of the articles was just like the lead singer was a trans woman, and I was just like, wait, the woman who did the musical number, the Goblin. But I'm pretty sure that that is not who was being referred to.
Yeah.
It would have been an interesting thing if it was like, no, actually, the same person played uh, Ruby's friend and the Goblin, but that's not true either. I checked.
Yeah, I forget who
Uh,
it was. There's some sort of musician or singer that was behind the Goblin singer.
mm.
I forget who it was. I don't know if they're popular here over here or not.
Either way, if they're popular in 2024, I probably would not recognize their name. Like, I mean, it took me a decade to learn who Taylor Swift was.
Jesus. She's a pop singer. That's all I
Yep.
really care.
I had a coworker who was just, and I'm going to be one sentence because I'm aware that this is going off topic at the end of the episode.
Mm.
But I had a coworker who was, with like, people say I look like Taylor Swift, so they call me Taylor Swift sometimes, and I was just like, and at the time I had no idea who she was talking about. Anyway, we're supposed to be talking about final thoughts of this
Mm.
episode.
I mean, thankfully we're running ahead of schedule,
Yeah.
so
Doing
We
good
have
job.
we have moments for a
But
few
Matt has
little
to wake
moments like
up in
that.
6 hours.
Right, yeah.
5.5. Actually, yeah. Oh, no, we're about 6, yeah.
So are you done, or is it Matt? I
Yeah,
mean,
that's me
yeah,
done, yeah.
it's on to Matt.
All right. So, general feeling about this one. I will agree that it's very entertaining. I don't think it smashed any expectations, so I'm not like going to give this a 5. But I will also say that it wasn't a terrible watch, and it was at least, despite only watching it once, I can remember a good portion of it. So it seems to have done well. Uh, Good acting, decent music, decent effects. Maybe a few little fixes on some of the ideas in the story, but that'd be about it. Generally all around, generally good start. We'll see where it goes from here.
Got it?
Oh yeah, Bill.
Okay. Yeah, I thought it was a fun Christmas episode. Um, as a new, I consider this more the start of the new era than the 60th specials. So as a new era, this episode is kind of defining what Doctor Who will be. Um, and in that sense, it's RTD again, but a little bit more theatrical. Uh, so the whole idea of does something fit in Doctor Who or not? In my mind, it doesn't really apply at this stage because it's the start of a new era, and Doctor Who reinvents itself frequently. But it's not a huge departure from the past. Um, I thought it was a pretty good episode overall. It didn't blow me away, but I think it was probably above average for Doctor Who Christmas specials.
Hmm.
And I'm waiting to see the plot really kick in the next episode or two to really see where things are going.
Yeah,
Ratings.
Alex.
Ooh. I mean, for all the issues I have with this, I think it's still. I have to knock it down a bit for certain things that just kind of overall bug me, but I don't. Honestly, and I might end up being the low baller for this, but I think I'm going to give it a 4.
4.0.
I feel like I'm a bit more confident in that because I've seen this episode like 4 times. So,
All right, Matt.
And I feel your confidence and agree 4.0. I agreed on that before you
Okay.
even said it.
4.0. And I'm going to give a 4.5. I don't think I had enough issues with the episode to lower it past that. Which gives us an average of 4.17.
Look at Mr. Contradiction here.
And that places this at,
At least he's not a low bar this week.
yeah.
Hmm.
Speaking of which, I realized I was the only one who never gave a Chibnall episode a 5.0. But that's number 171 out of 459 things reviewed. It is on par with Inferno, Legopolis, Bad Wolf Parting of the Ways, The Time Meddler, Gridlock, and that's it for regular Doctor Who episodes. It is not as good as The Power of Kroll, Hellbent, Frontier in Space, Destiny of the Daleks, The Shakespeare Code, Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror, or The Mind Robber. And it is better than Army of Ghosts Doomsday, The Mask of Mandragora, Nightmare of Eden, and Meglos. Right, so that's all we have to say about the Church on Ruby Road. Let us know in the comments what you thought of this week's episode. Being a Christmas special, most people have probably watched it. Don't forget to like the video if you've listened this far, and subscribe on YouTube to get our exports, or follow us on Twitch to get notified when we stream. Next time is our 500th episode, and we will be reviewing the entire Chris Chibnall era of Doctor Who. We'll see you then.
Oh boy.
Uh...
Good night.